Good morning. What a blessing to see you all. For those of you who were there yesterday, did we have fun at the wedding or what? What a hoot. What a hoot. That was good stuff. I was really blessed by being there. And I hope you were as well. We're going to be studying from the book of Psalms this morning, chapter 139. Probably my favorite psalm. It catches you a little off guard, but it is so good. And I think it really points out the fact that God has a plan. You ever look at house plans? I have to look at house plans every day in my job. Just simply because I have to know the square footage of the floor plan. And I have to know how much material it takes to go there. And will this work or will it not work? Is it sufficient? Is the subfloor good enough to lay hardwood, or will we have to do carpet? Or is this something that's got to be glued, or can it be stapled? I have to know all that stuff. And plans tell you that. They give instruction. And somebody had to sit around and think those up. It took time and forethought and decision making and planning. And God has a plan for you. Listen at His word in Psalm chapter 139, beginning at verses 1 through 5. I'm going to be reading this morning from the King James Version. It says, "To the chief musician, a psalm of David. O Lord, Thou hast searched me and known me. Thou hast known my downsitting and my uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but lo, O Lord, Thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid Thy hand upon me." A lot of poetical language there, but basically what it says is there's nothing that's happening in your life right now that God doesn't know about. Have you been praying about something? Have you been disturbed in spirit? He knows. You can take it to Him in prayer. And as the psalmist says here, the words that are on my lips, He knows before they come out of my mouth. That's some pretty in-depth planning, isn't it? He knows when you hurt deep within your spirit, when you've been wounded, when you're grieving, when you're happy, when you're overjoyed, like a lot of you were yesterday, or maybe burdened because of an accident. He knows. You're on His mind. He hasn't forgotten. And He will carry you through. You see, there's nothing about you that God doesn't know. He knows when you come and go. He knows what time you get out of bed every morning and when you go to bed. He knows your likes and your dislikes. In Psalm 37 and verse 4, it is God's intention to give you the desires of your heart. He wants to bless your life in so many ways. And He cares about things that we're not even concerned about, though some of us may be concerned more than others. In Luke chapter 12 and verse 7, it says He knows how much hair you've got on your head. That's easier for Him to count for some of you than others. Garvis isn't here this morning. I always like, yeah, there you are back there. I always like to mention Brother Garvis. He knows. All of these things do not slip His attention. There have been times in my life where I have cried out to the Lord, Lord, you have forgotten me. You have abandoned me. Lord, you have lost your grip on what is going on in my life. Where are you? You ever feel that way? Sure you have. And so had David. And so have many of God's people throughout their life. But He knows. Let's keep reading in Psalm chapter 39, beginning at verse 7. Whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yes, the darkness hides not from thee, but the night shineth as the day, and the darkness and the light are both alike to thee. For thou hast possessed my reins. Thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. I like that verse 13 there. You know, that word reins, you think of a horse or something being led about with a lead. God is in total control. I can remember being in my mid-30s and being so stressed and so bent out of shape because of all the stuff going on in my life, and wondering where God was, why He wasn't acting, why He wasn't doing something to my liking. But as you continue to read on, past verse 13, in verse 14 He says, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you, and when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there were none of them. You don't think there's been some planning going on for you? There has been. You see, God has plans for you. He had plans for the Apostle Paul. And Paul tells this in Acts chapter 22. We've been reading this on Wednesday nights in here. Ananias came to him and said, Brother Saul, and this is Philip's paraphrase, God has plans for you. He has plans for you to hear His gospel, to obey His gospel, and to take it to people of the Gentiles. God has plans for you. But you know what? He also had plans for Jonah, didn't He? I want you to go over to Nineveh and tell these people they're going to be destroyed. And you know what Jonah was thinking? Okay, Lord, I wasn't really on a death wish, but whatever you say. So he gets on a ship and goes the opposite direction. Remember what the psalmist says, where shall I go to get away from God? Well, he didn't on a ship going the opposite direction, because the sea got rough and they started throwing the cargo overboard. And Jonah finally told him, he said, I know y'all are thinking we're all going to die, but if you'll just throw me overboard, all of this will come to a quick end, because he's after me. And they did. And Jonah ended up in the water, and then he ended up in the belly of the fish that God had prepared, had planned. And then later on, after Jonah repented, he became fish vomit. Wouldn't you like to have that in your resume? Worked for 15 years for the salvage store. Worked for 20 years for Brentwood Interiors. Oh yeah, and became fish vomit. Yeah. What I'm trying to say this morning is He knows. If you came in here this morning carrying a burden, or wondering if God could ever use you in His kingdom, or thinking, does He ever pay me any attention? The answer is yes, yes, yes. Amen. He knows. He's paying attention. He's watching what's going on in your life. Verse 16 of Psalm 39 says He had it planned before you were born. He has plans. And as we see from Jonah, we don't always obey those plans, because we have free will. We can choose not to go the way God has planned for our lives. And I've done that. I have made a huge mess in my life at times. Like Jonah, there have been moments in my life where I've said no to God's plan, where I have run the other way. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted things to work out the way I thought they should. I should have known I'm not that smart. I should have known it would have been a mistake. But just like some of you, I didn't. And I went headlong down my path, doing my thing, my way. And it wasn't until I ended up dead broke and penniless that I turned and said, okay, God, you got my attention now. I was wrong, and you're always right. What do you do when you've made a mess of life like that? I tell you how it makes you feel. It makes you feel broken and worthless and useless. It makes you feel like where Jesus said, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its savor, it is good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden underfoot. That's how I felt. And I'm guessing that some of you have either felt or are feeling that way this morning too. Well, let me tell you something. Our God knows how to rejuvenate dead salt. He can do that. He knows how to rescue us from ourselves. And He has a plan to do that too. See, God doesn't just have a plan. He's got plan B for when we mess up plan A. It's what we call in business a contingency plan. You ever heard that term before? What is your contingency plan? Well, what do you mean by that? What are you going to do if plan A don't work out? when we're going to go to plan B. You know, sometimes you have a plan for how you're going to get out of a burning house if it catches on fire, but you may try to implement that plan and the way could be blocked. And you can't get out that way. And if you don't have a contingency plan, you're in a bad way. You're stuck. God's got a contingency plan so that we're not stuck. And it's a good one. It's a very good one. In Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, he says, "For I know the plans I have for you." He knows the plan. You see those words? Let that sink deep within your spirit. You may not know what the plan is, but you don't have to know, because the planner knows. He knows the plans, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. I love that verse. That's my verse. It should be your verse. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God and need a contingency plan. And so did Israel. When Jeremiah wrote these words, Israel was worshiping false gods. They were committing adultery and fornication and just living life whatever ways they wanted to, eating and drinking and being merry. Just having a high old time. And they ended up in captivity. The first captivity was when the Assyrians came in and carried away Israel, the northern 10 tribes. The second captivity was when the Babylonians came in and took away Judah. And they carried them off to Babylon, and Daniel was in that group. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Carried away. And Lee, there is part of your corporate punishment, because Daniel was good. And so were these other three. They had done none of those things. They were worshipers of the true and the living God. And even within their captivity, God had a plan for them there and used them. Talking about a contingency plan. What a good one. You know, for a long time I thought I had messed things up so bad that God would be ashamed to use me again in His kingdom. You ever feel that way? God, I know you can fix a lot of things, but you can't fix this. It's too broken. The pieces of paper are cut up too small. I've been through the shredder, Lord. You can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Oh, yes, He can. And yes, He will, if you will submit to Him. If you will give your life wholly to Him. You see, He knew it would happen. His plans for you are not just for the here and now. He has plans for you in the future. To give you a future and a hope. You ever thought about that word, hope? It doesn't just mean, oh, I hope so. It is the desire with the expectation. And because God has said it, I not only can desire it, but I can expect it to happen. That's our hope. We're not just sitting around wringing our hands and saying, oh, I hope God can fix this. We know He can. And we know He has a plan. And that His plan will be implemented. His plans are perfect. His thoughts are higher than my thoughts. And His ways are above my ways. God's not only got a plan to rescue you, but He wants to restore you. You know, sometimes we get rescued, but we're shaken up, we're injured. We have lifelong injuries that come from whatever it was we were rescued from. Sometimes people are rescued out of the fire, but they live the rest of their life with the scars from the burns and the pain and the nightmares and the fear that never goes away. Our God is deeper than that. And His plans not only are for you and to rescue you, but they're to restore you, to make you like you were again, to make you better, more complete, whole again. Joel chapter 2, verse 25. And I will restore to you the years that the locust have eaten, the cankerworm, the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. And you shall eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God that hath dealt wondrously with you. And my people shall never be ashamed. And you shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and I am the Lord your God, and none else. And my people shall never be ashamed. Did you notice how he said that twice? Some of you are ashamed of where you've been and what you've done. Jesus not only came to take your sin, but He came to take the shame with it. We used to sing a praise and worship song years ago that said, I'm trading my sorrow. I'm trading my shame. I'm laying it down for the joy of the Lord. Amen. That's what He asks us to do. I'm trading my sickness. I'm trading my sorrow. I'm laying it down for the joy of the Lord. Yes, Lord. That's what He asks of us. Just say yes to Him. He'll do the rest of the work if you can come to Him. If you can run to the mercy seat. That is the place of redemption, the place of salvation. It was the place where Jesus shed his blood on the cross. It says in Hebrews that he entered into the heavenly tabernacle with his own blood. He passed through the veil and sanctified the mercy seat, which was the place of propitiation for you and for me, which took away for all time the brokenness, the shame, the sin, and the sorrow that we could never get rid of with any amount of good works. Jesus did that for you. And he did that for me because God had a plan. His plan works. It is infallible. All we have to do is be willing to say, Lord, I need you. I realize that all this time I've been trying to do these things on my own and was getting nowhere and just spinning my wheels, that you had a plan. You had a way for me to be right in your eyes. And it was through your Son, Jesus. Very simple plan. Many places in the Scriptures we know that faith is important. It was important for people to have faith when Jesus healed them. Except for Lazarus, he was dead, you know. Jesus had enough faith for him too. He asked Mary and Martha, do you believe in the resurrection? Do you believe your brother will rise again? They said, yes, Lord, at the resurrection. They had no idea what was getting ready to happen because God had a plan. And it's beyond your wildest dreams. He can make changes in your life that you never thought were possible. Just simply if you'll come to Him. And the plan is simple. Believe Him. Repent and say, Lord, I've been wrong all this time. All of my ideas were trash, and yours are perfect. I'm going to start doing things your way. I'm going to start believing in you and knowing that I can trust you with every aspect of my life. I'm going to turn it over to you. And I'm confessing you as Lord. And I'm going to die to self and be raised to walk in newness of life and the watery grave of baptism. Maybe you've done all that and you've still messed up. There is more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner that repents. The angels in heaven, they know you're thinking about it. They've got the party favors and the confetti just waiting for you to give yourself back to Him. You think we had a nice party yesterday at the wedding? Well, you just wait until you come back to the Lord. There's going to be some whooping and hollering going on in the heavens. Just because of you. All because God had a plan. And He wants you to be a part of that plan, not only for here and now, but for all of eternity. And if you need Him this morning, we ask that you come while we stand and sing this song.